Welcome back, Redeemers. Thank you for joining us again. My name is Curtis.
I'm Nick.
And today we got the final track on the album, the Temptations album from TXT, Farewell Neverland, color-coded. So we're going to see how this album wraps up right here. Without further ado, let's see what we got.
Carlos Santana.
I love it, acoustics. Simple yet very effective.
And I'm free falling. 별들아 모두 편히처럼 till I be calling. No matter where I go, 여긴 no home. 두려워도 난 더 아래로.
So beautiful.
Very beautiful.
매일매일 같은 계절. 나는 참 나지 않아.
Neverland, Boy Won't Grow Up.
들지도 않는 태양에 맞춰. 누구도 별을 보지 않아. Paradise is full of life. 외면하고 싶었어 난.
That's such a deep bar too.
내 마지막 피난처. 알아서 endless fighting. It's the end, it's true. Never in my love. 이젠 안녕. And I'm free falling. 별들아 모두 편히처럼 till I be calling. No matter where I go, 여긴 no home. 두려워도 난 더 아래로.
Their voices are incredible.
Never in my love.
Oh yeah. Inflection.
My Peter Pan.
That's such a tough line.
It's time. Never let my love be and I'm free falling. 열들아 모두 편히처럼 till I be calling. No matter where I go, 여긴 no home. 두려워도 난 더 아래로. And you never let my love.
Vocalizing.
Oh, yo, ain't no live version.
Is it really?
Nah, it's the live version.
Oh my god.
My love. Don't tell me that's it.
I think that's my favorite on the album.
I think that's my favorite on the album.
Right here. Yeah, this is beautiful.
Yeah, this might be my favorite.
Fair, simple acoustic beat. No, that makes sense though. What I will say too, in relation to what we said about throughout the album, the other beats, how they might have been a little bit unorthodox. With this being the acoustic, they told a story just in the production alone. And what I mean by that is something was beaten down on you in the beginning, not in a bad way, of course, but just to allure that feeling that you can't shake, so the production doesn't shake, and then the calmness when you get into that seduction aspect of it, essentially because you're consumed by it, to where it's like, you know, everything drowns out and there's no sound. And then later, you know, fast forward a couple songs and you get to, you know, Tinnitus, to where it's like, again, that ringing in your ear to where it becomes deafening. And, you know, you get aspects like that. And just in the production, and mind you, you get the Caribbean tropical sort of vibes with the reggaeton, as you were saying. But then with this, it's talking about that same, like, imagine what they had said previously about Tinnitus with those tropical themes of everything. And then you get to this, and it's a simple acoustic. Like, they laid it down to where essentially you stripped away all the extravagantness of the production, but in so doing, you also told a story, because now you went from that tropical vibe, again, you know, because they said paradise is full of lies. So you went from that tropical paradise, seemingly, you know, the high of everything, to essentially, literally, like they said with Peter Pan, crashing down to earth, essentially, to where I'm not flying anymore. you know, and whatever metaphor you want to read into that, of course, you know, would certainly apply, I'm sure. But basically, you know, you literally just leveled it down to playing ground, or you leveled the playing field to where it's essentially like ground level production, and I mean that in a complimentary way, of course, because it's the acoustic is so beautiful, but in its beauty and it is in its simplicity. And I think they did an incredible job, you know, with the production of that, as far as, you know, telling the story as well as they have. But yeah, and that's literally just in the progressions itself. Everything that they were saying here, though, and for one, you know, certainly their vocals. I mean, you know, when they were vocalizing with those oohs and everything like that, it's just like you were just like, it was calming and peaceful. But the poetry and the lyrics for me too is certainly something that hit for me. They did a great job thematically of really not just telling this song individually as a great song, but really tying up the themes of the album to where it's like you're allowing yourself to essentially go from, you know, that place of temptation to crashing back down to earth because you realized that paradise is full of lies. So that farewell Neverland aspect, essentially that child that doesn't want to grow up, as they were saying, you know, the themes of, you know, growing up and adolescence and loss of innocence and so on and so forth. And those things are all present with temptation, of course, because that's essentially what loss of innocence is in general. You know, it's when you're forced to grow up by having to confront those difficult things that are presented with adulthood. And honestly, there's a whole theory behind it as to why horror characters are often meant to be teens in general, because the idea is that adolescence is you're being robbed of your innocence as you grow into adulthood. So if you have someone that's typically meant to be an older teen, you're essentially in that phase where you're losing your innocence. And of course, you know, horror will convey that with, you know, sexual stuff as far as, you know, things like that you've seen in film. But then you'll also see it in just regards to like, I'm realizing that I can't live forever, like you would think a child would. So the confrontation of kind of mortality and things of that nature is always inherent in horror, and I'm echoing that because you saw themes of that, especially in the choreography, in reference to Devil in the Window, to where that temptation has now become a fear when you're consumed by it, and just the journey they kind of went on throughout the album. And of course, I'll save this, you know, more so for the album review, but it's just all that to say, everything was elevated in the way they tied it together here, to where that what you had once thought was that paradise is actually something that's, you know, a lie. And then, you know, keeping with that aspect of everything crashing back down to earth. And as I said, you know, both in the production, but certainly in the lyrics as well. Like, I just think they really did a great job of tying this all together and getting to that journey where you're essentially able to leave. And the last thing I'll really say in regards to that is now thinking back on the Sugar Rush Ride video as well, when you got the train, and the train was from another song too, the 9 3/4 song, the Harry Potter. So even like the references to that, and I know I haven't, you know, specifically heard that or anything like that, but it's the magicalness of that other world being presented. So the whole Neverland aspect is kind of that fantasy fictional. So all that to say, it just really ties into that loss of innocence. And it's interesting that loss of innocence is often seen as a really negative connotation sort of thing. But I think that they did a good job of ultimately showing it as a positive, to where it's like, you know, I went through that and it was tempting and it was something that took from me in a way, but it's something that I've ultimately been able to grow from. And even if they still maintain that childlike innocence, you know, so to speak, I don't know what future projects are going to bring for them or how they're going to choose to explore that. But it's one of those staple things in the process of, you know, kind of becoming an adult and everything. So I just really like how they experimented with this. Yeah, this honestly hit on all levels for me, I would say.
Yeah, this was amazing. This is probably my favorite one on the album. Definitely love everything first with the production. This was perfect. This literally was, like you said, the acoustic, because it comes off very acoustic. But I actually like that it's ramped up on certain parts. Like, it's like they kind of knew here when to kind of ratchet up a little bit, and to even when to kick the vocals up a little bit more, to really we talk about this a lot, how like the vocals can convey the message. I really felt like someone was falling. And I feel like it's illustrated very well on the chorus parts.
They had high points that were sequentially feeling like, you know, and that could be multiple tricks. You said like the distancing of the mic where you kind of hold it a little bit further to convey that.
The separation.
That separation, that spacing aspect. So there's a lot of tricks like that, you know, it could be conveyed. And also going from this register to this register, or kind of, you know, fade effects in editing, of course, you know, in the engineering side of things. There's a lot of ways to convey, you know, kind of things like that. And I just think they did a great job all the way through.
I'm loving a lot of the themes and a lot of stuff that's going on, because we talk about what all the stages of grief.
Yep. This is acceptance.
This is acceptance.
Again.
This is acceptance. However you look at it, he's accepted. And I think you can read into this quite a few ways. Seems like he's like, I don't want to say done with her, because I feel like you can kind of relate this to a girl if you want to, or
certainly
you can relate it.
Fools.
Yeah, or you can relate it to like other things, because obviously Moas, if y'all know, y'all can give us like a little bit more information. But the way some of the songs are structured, they are set up to where sometimes it maybe seem like they're talking about like a love interest, or sometimes you could be talking about a couple different things. You could be talking about your career.
Well, they say Neverland, my love. So it's like whatever you
project as your love. Yeah, thank you. That's a better way of putting it. Whatever you kind of project as your love, you can insinuate that through here. But this is definitely, to me, bro, acceptance. Like, it's just like it is what it is. Like, you know, we're falling. Like fuck it, my Neverland. Like, you know, my love, I'm out. And it makes sense with everything that's like going on with the album. And we'll probably jump into that a little bit more with the album review.
Strangely enough, and I'm sure this might have no implication on it, but obviously that whole build the bridge halfway thing that we always talk about up here, and just like they could be talking about a literal love, of course, you know, like a relationship love, but also, and even like aside from even just career stuff, you know, I mean, like, you know, but it's like, it also could be like, and I was trying to think of something that would fit that narrative as well, as far as like the paradise and it becoming a lie thing. And for some reason, maybe just
Paradise Lie.
The right, hey, this is just the good company.
Yeah. Bang PD is a writer on here.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, he's one of the writers on here.
Hey, that's incredible. But it's another thing that kind of made me think was like, even just for example, like family. If it's like, you know, that might be a paradise where it's like, you know, we're supposed to be together, kind of things like that. But then you're like, okay, it's actually a lie, or there's something like that's distant, or you realize there's a toxicness to certain things or anything like that, to where it's like now you're distancing, you're coming down from that, you're growing up, you're beginning to realize things. And that's not saying anything intrinsic about like what the song is trying to convey, but that's just one brief example of kind of how a metaphor of, you know, goodbye my love or whatever could apply to, you know, so many other avenues. And of course, you know, we've said that with literal, you know, romantic relationship kind of love. We've said that with, you know, the artistry of your dreams and kind of what you're setting out for yourself. Even literally you're yourself, you know, just like who you see yourself to be, you know, the whole self-reflection aspect of it, where it's like goodbye to that perceived version of myself, or that persona, if you will, another tie-in, ironically. But just like those deeper themes of kind of, you know, exploration. And that's just, you know, one of many that could certainly read into this. But all that to say, it's, you know, when you make music that's specific to you, but also has the ability to reach out to others and allow them to connect to it, I just think that's one of the greatest signs of what music is able to do in general, and certainly something I feel like they've done in this song and throughout the album.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something with the loss of innocence, and I think we kind of knew that was going to be one of the reoccurring themes that was going to be mentioned on here. Obviously, temptation as well, and sometimes you can lose your innocence through temptation. I pair that all with, so obviously, you know, the themes on here are heavily implied for it to be Neverland with Peter Pan themes and everything. Yeah. And I'm assuming everyone listening has like read Peter Pan and kind of knows what Neverland is, and like all the boys go there to stay young forever and be youthful and just kind of be still have that innocence. And I want to compare that to like ignorance a little bit, because ignorance is bliss. Sometimes not knowing things, or, you know, not being aware of certain situations is really a weight off of your shoulders, because you're oblivious to a lot of things. So the loss of innocence that you talk about, I think, pairs very well with this, because sometimes when your eyes are open to like certain things, you do get hurt, whether that's your first love, whether it's family or something else, and you are kind of forced to grow up, you know, after heart-wrenching pain at a young age. So, you know, you put that in with like Temptation and stuff like that, and Temptation
it's like a sink or swim kind of thing. If you're thrown into like a deep end or uncharted, you know, territory or water, however you kind of read into that, it's something that you're essentially forced to overcome, or you're kind of burdened with it becoming, you know, a trauma for you or something that consumes you. And honestly, that plays on the whole temptation theme, where it's like, you know, if you don't get to a place of acceptance within this, it is something that will consume you. And that's, you know, one of the greatest forms of temptation there probably is. So I like that it's not just like something that's seen in a religious context, as far as, you know, the whole devil by the window, you know, struggle with faith or whatever. I like that it's also, again, you know, just like we had said, something that could be interpreted in a way where it's like, you know, just the temptation to be consumed by your traumas, as opposed to the willingness to try to fight and overcome your trauma. So it's just, again, one of many ways you could certainly read into this.
Yeah, and I love the ending like of this, just because being self-aware is a very beautiful thing, and sometimes a lot of people don't even reach that level of self-awareness until you're well into maybe your 40s or 50s, maybe, where you're kind of replaying life and doing everything. And it seems like they've pretty much accepted kind of everything with this track, that, you know, the temptations and everything that they were fighting throughout the entire album. And like I said, we'll probably get into that a little bit more on the album review, but just the way they wrapped this up, I think, was kind of beautiful.
No, absolutely. And I'm not exactly sure how relevant, you know, this quote is going to be necessarily, but it did kind of make me think of it. Because you know how they were talking a little bit, at least the inclination of tinnitus with the whole rock star aspect, how, you know, like the price of your dream and everything like that, of kind of, you know, if I'm not a rock star and I'm not seeing that within myself, at least it felt a little bit more artistically personal in that regard. But basically, just one quote that might tie into that I was at least kind of thinking of as they, you know, began to wrap things up in this track was, it was if you're worried about the price of your dream, wait till you get the bill for regret. And that's something that's really powerful as well, as far as like the idea that like you said, you get to a place where you have to look back and realize, you know, I messed up here, I messed up there, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. That price is going to be far more than the price of kind of going for your dreams, which is ironic because they're talking about a paradise full of lies and coming back down to earth. But even coming back down to earth in that way could be, you know, freeing yourself from the anchor of not pursuing something that's a dream. So I like how there's a lot of ways to kind of read into that as well.
It's a nice quote. And you hear stories like that from older people a lot, who might tell somebody who's 19 or 20 years old, like, yo, go chase your dream or go do it, because the regret of never trying, like, you know, will fuck you up long term versus you just not really jumping out the window to do anything. That temptation to live in a normal life.
You can learn so, even if you don't achieve, like, you know, quote unquote your dream or whatever the case may be, you can learn so much from going on the journey of trying to pursue your dream that it ultimately lends you or takes you down a path that even could be better and brighter for you, introduce you to, you know, people that are better for you or whatever the case may be. So it's just, you know, there's so many ways life works in mysterious ways, or at least I certainly, you know, believe so. And I just think that's really interesting conceptually to kind of go about articulating and play out, and even through the vein of temptation throughout the album and the whole aspect of loss of innocence, where you can get to a place where you're ultimately willing to have seen whatever that pain is, or to have gone on that journey of, you know, seeing the negative things in it, to where you can ultimately come out the other end positive and be able to grow from that, is something that is inherent certainly with loss of innocence. But I just think it's really great musically how they express that as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna wrap my stuff up just because I think we're gonna talk about this obviously a little bit more.
Yeah.
But no, this was beautiful. What I will say about the album is I downloaded every single song, and I like the duality too of a lot of different songs too, because it wasn't like kind of one song repeated throughout. You know, sometimes you might have 5 tracks and like 3 of them are the same song, kind of 2 were like the same ballad. I felt like all these songs were different, but I'll touch more of that on the album review.
No, I think they all did feel different.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, anything else you want to get out before we jump into talking about it?
I just really love the poetry and the lyrics and how they express it and well, throughout this. It's really interesting. I just think they did a really great job exploring everything, and I'm really curious to kind of learn a little bit more behind the scenes as far as what their process was like. Because obviously we saw that concept trailer and everything, and just how much artistry.
I didn't want to say this out loud and shit because I think we are going to get into it. There is a behind the scenes that's like 30 minutes long, probably of them doing the entire album. So I know y'all going to want us to jump into that. I know y'all gonna want us to jump into that.
The artist in me, I'm just like really curious to hear, but it's certainly a really well executed album on all fronts.
We might be jumping into that. I wonder should we jump into that, and then I wonder should we jump into that while we do the album review. So it's like 25 minutes. It might be worth the watch.
We'll see.
It might be worth the watch. Me and Kurt about to talk. Jump in the comments. Tell us how y'all feel about this track in particular. Definitely about to jump in and have like a conversation about the entire album. Shout out to TXT, man. This is different. This is those songs and tracks that kind of put you somewhere else compared to other people. So yeah, man. Let's jump into the album review. I'm ready to keep talking about this. I'll let y'all. Peace.
Take care.